Hi, I'm Georgia, and this is Campbell's Biology, Chapter 6, A Tour of the Cell. So, this chapter is all about the cell. Whether it be eukaryotic or prokaryotic, it should mostly be a review of what you learned in earlier biology classes prior to taking AP Biology or a more advanced level. We'll keep this more of a quick summary, and if you want more details on specifics of organelle functions or anything like that, go ahead and check out some of our preliminary bio videos by clicking the link below. Okay, let's go into cell theory. Cell theory is the idea that all living things originate from and consist of cells and cell products. So a cell size is governed by the surface area to volume ratio. So this regulates the size of cells, and it's really key to understanding all cells, whether they be animal cells or plant cells or even bacterial cells. All of them are governed by surface area to volume ratio. So this theme is actually involved in a lot of areas. Why our intestines have thousands of villi, which are little tiny folds, because the surface area to volume ratio helps them take in more nutrients. Okay, so let's go into a standard bacterial cell, which is a prokaryote. Pro meaning before, and karyo meaning nucleus. The prokaryotes were thought to be some of the first cells. As you can see, some of the things that define this prokaryote or prokaryotic cell is that they don't have a nucleus. So this is a nucleoid, a region in which all DNA is contained, but they don't have a membrane-bound container for their DNA. Also, they don't have any compartments within their cytosol or their cytoplasm, same thing. The massive sort of a plasma-like liquid that just fills the cell. They don't have any specific areas or containers for any of their functions. It's all just free-floating. So that helps distinguish it from what we'll go into later, the eukaryotic cells. Bacterial cells, prokaryotes, can be like this one we've just looked at, or they can be photosynthetic, which means that they have the capabilities to do photosynthesis, which means that they can make food for themselves and they can live off of the energy of the sun, photosynthesis, using photo light to synthesize things. They can make glucose and other molecules that they then use for energy. So this leads us into the endosymbiotic theory. The idea that a long time ago, billions of years ago, there were these two types of cells. There were standard prokaryotes that could just do cellular respiration. They just take in whatever's floating around and break it down and get energy off using those molecules. And there were photosynthetic bacteria that could make their own food. The endosymbiotic theory, endo meaning inside or within, sym meaning together, and biotic meaning living, describes the idea that billions of years ago, these two types of prokaryotes were engulfed by larger cells that had a nucleus. And so if we look at this cell, it looks like a standard modern day animal cell, which contains mitochondria, which are the sites of cellular respiration, where they break down molecules to get energy. So a long time ago, it was thought that a bacteria that had this capability was engulfed by a bigger cell, and that slowly evolved into what we see today. And that initial bacteria that could do cellular respiration became the mitochondria of today's cells. And similarly, if we're looking at a plant cell or an algae cell, something that can produce its own energy from a chloroplast, which is this green right here, that was initially engulfed by a bigger cell that didn't have that capability, and that became a cyanobacterium, which could do photosynthesis, became the chloroplast of today. This is all over billions of years of evolution, and slowly it got built in. Something that supports this theory is that chloroplasts and mitochondria both have double membranes, which suggests that they were their own cell a long, long time ago. If we look at a classic animal cell, U means true, karyo means nucleus, and as you can see, there is a true nucleus. This is the center of the cell formation. So if we look at a plant cell, it has the same thing. It has a true nucleus right here, And it has more rigid cell walls, and it has a vacuole of water, and it has chloroplasts, which is where the photosynthesis happens. And that's why it's an autotroph. It can make its own energy. We'll go into that. But so these are both eukaryotes. If we look at cells communicating, there's a lot of different ways it can do this. So in a plant cell, the most common thing is a plasmodesmata, which is simply a linkage which join adjacent plant cells or connect the two cells that are next to each other. And this allows for transport of nutrients easily between cells, and it allows for networks. You can see this is a diagram showing a bunch of plant cells lined up within a leaf or within any stem or part of this plant that allow for all molecules to pass through really easily. And so this allows for a lot of communication between the plant because they don't have a nervous system like a lot of animals do. There are a few main types of junctions. Junctions form leak-proof seals between cells, which don't allow any sort of things to pass through between the cells. The intermediate filaments and desmosomes allow cells to adhere and anchor to one another, but they allow flexibility of movement. And then your gap junctions provide for the direct transfer of water and ions between adjacent cells. And ions gated channels play a big part in action potentials when you're looking at the nervous system.